welcome to the third part of Unit 3 Fiber to Fabric. In this part, we are going to study about silk. So, silk fibers are obtained from insect. So, they are also called animal fibers. Silkworm spin the silk fibers. The rearing of silkworms for obtaining silk is called sericulture. But before we discuss the process of obtaining the silk, it is necessary to know the interesting life history of silk moth. So what is the history of silk moth? The female silk moth lays eggs from which hatch larvae, which are called caterpillars or silkworms. They grow in size, and when the caterpillar is ready to enter the next stage of its life history called pupa, it first weaves the net to hold itself and swings its head from side to side in the form of figure 8. See the figure properly. During these movements, the caterpillar produces the fiber made of a protein which hardens on exposure to air and becomes a silk fiber. The caterpillar completely covers itself by silk fibers and turns into pupa. This covering is known as cocoon. The further development of pupa into the moth continues inside the cocoon. Silk fibers are used for weaving the cloth, silk cloth. So this is the whole life history of a silk moth. Female silk moth first lays its eggs, then from inside the eggs the caterpillar or larva hatches, then they spin around themselves the fiber and which hardens on exposure and becomes pupa. And inside the pupa, inside the cocoon, silkworm develops. See this next figure, and from that the silkworm comes out. So this is whole life cycle of a silk moth. Silk fibers are used for weaving the silk cloth. The silk yarn is obtained from the cocoon of silk moth. From the cocoon, the silk thread is obtained. There is a variety of silk moth which looks very different from one another, and the silk yarn they yield is different in texture. That is, they are different in color. Some are smooth, some are shiny, etc. Thus, Tasar silk, Muga silk, Kosa silk, etc. are obtained from cocoons spun by different types of moths, and the most common silk moth is mulberry silk moth. The silk fiber from the cocoon of this moth is soft, lustrous and elastic, and can be dyed into the various different colors. Sericulture or culture of silkworm is very common occupation in India. Now from cocoon, how the silk is obtained, we will study this. See the figure. For obtaining the silk, moths are reared, means taking care of silkworms and providing them with the food. And their cocoons are collected to get the silk threads. Rearing silkworms. A female silk moth lays hundreds of eggs at a time, which are stored carefully on strips of cloth or paper and sold to the silkworm farmers. First of all, female silk moth lays number of eggs at a time, and they are stored on paper, and then they are given to the silkworm farmers. And these farmers keep the eggs under proper conditions like proper temperature and humidity. The eggs, see the figure, the eggs are warmed to a suitable temperature for the larvae to hatch from eggs, which is done when mulberry leaves bear a fresh crop of leaves. The larvae, called silkworms or the caterpillars, eat day and night and increase in size and are kept in clean bamboo trays along with freshly chopped mulberry leaves. Mulberry leaves along with the eggs and the silkworms, it is shown in the figure. After 25 to 30 days, the caterpillars stop eating and move to a tiny chamber of bamboo in the tray to spin the cocoons, and small rags or twigs may be provided in the trays to which the cocoons get attached. The caterpillar or silkworm spins the cocoon inside which the silk moth develops. Reeling of silkworm. How the processing of silk is done. A pile of cocoons is used for obtaining silk fibers, and cocoons are kept under the sun or boiled or exposed to the high steam, and silk fibers separate out. The process of taking out threads from cocoon for use as a silk is called the reeling of silk. Reeling is done in a special machines which unwind the threads or fibers of silk from the cocoon and silk fibers, and then they are spun into the silk. See this figure properly, which are woven into the silk cloth by the weavers. So your chapter ends here. Thank you for your attention. Now read this chapter from textbook.